I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the second meeting of March, our regular meeting for Sylvania Township Trustees. Today's date is Tuesday, March 17th. The time is 5 p.m. Will you call the roll, Dave?
Yes, Mr. Genowine?
Here.
Mr. Mahoney is absent. Mr. Crandall?
Here.
Simcoe, here.
Could we rise and pledge allegiance to the flag? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. I'll approve the minutes.
We might as well wait. I wasn't here and I didn't get a chance to listen to them.
Okay, all right. We'll delay the minutes to the next meeting. There's minutes for the March 3rd regular meeting. Any additions or deletions to the agenda, Mr. Turner?
Good evening, trustees and fiscal officer. There are no additions proposed for the agenda or deletions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I don't believe anyone signed in to speak.
No.
All right. We'll move on to the zoning department. I might say here, we ask the staff to not be present today. In the zoning report, fire, police, and road departments will be sent to the elected officials. If you have any questions on the monthly reports, call Mr. Turner. He'll follow up. So we'll pass 7.1 and go to a resolution to make a zone change for the property located at 8670 Sylvania Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is township-owned property north of Sylvania Avenue to the east of Herd Road. And this is authorization of an application requesting the zone change from agricultural to S1 special. It's my understanding the other township-owned properties are under the S1 designation. This would provide some consistency with how the other properties are zoned, and with the use of the property by the Road and Service Department would perhaps provide a little bit more flexibility in how it's used.
Yeah, this is 1 acre land where we store road materials, and we're going to change it to S1.
Correct. So if this were to be approved tonight by the trustees, this would go through the process of moving to the Toledo-Lucas County Planning Commission and then return back to for further action on the zone change.
I'll move resolution 20-059, authorize the application of a zone change for township property located at 8670 Sylvania Avenue.
Second.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Road Service Department will skip the monthly report. That'll be sent to us. And if you have any questions, once again, contact Mr. Turner. Next resolution, you want to address that, Mr. Turner?
Certainly. This is being proposed by Superintendent Nash. This is through the established contract purchasing through Middletown Ford. This is for two 2020 F-250 trucks for a total of just over $33,000 and just under $32,000 in total.
I'll move resolution 20-062, authorize the purchase of two 2020 F-250 trucks.
Second.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Next item?
Next item is authorization for the administrator to request engineering services. It's my understanding as the Lucas County Engineer's Office has undergone protocol changes and changes to how services are requested, that it can either be upon approval of two trustees or by the administrator. I believe that Superintendent Nash placed this on the agenda in order to expedite such requests given the size of Sylvania Township.
I'll offer resolution 20-067, authorization for administrator to request engineering services from Lucas County.
Second?
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Okay, that covers the road department. Let's go to the fire department. We'll skip the monthly report. Chief Ram is here, I think, to update us on the virus situation. Also, we might note that Chief Ram attended city council last evening. We appreciate that, Chief, to update city council.
Yes, sir, thank you. Really, tonight, I guess I'm here to answer any questions. I will let you know that I am currently the point person for Sylvania Township through the Emergency Operation Center down in Lucas County. I have sat in on all the meetings I missed last night. For some reason, I had my times wrong. And I am the secondary liaison for the fire EMS side. Chief Kaminsky from Toledo Fire is one, and I'm number two in case Chief Kaminsky can't be there. Also, I've been staying very tight with the Ohio Fire Chiefs. The Emergency Operations Center for the state is also open in Columbus. It's operating about the same type of hours that the one is here at Lucas County, so I've been sitting in on daily meetings or daily conference calls from the Ohio Fire Chiefs and keeping up on that. I will let you know we had one gentleman that did come down ill. However, he was told by the health department to self-isolate. Ends up it was flu A, influenza A, so thank God. But honestly, guys, it's coming. I just don't know exactly when. I will say, I was talking with Oliver a little while ago. We have 4 of the fogging machines that the material that we put in kills the coronavirus, and we also have one of those like blue lights. When we had an emergency fire chiefs meeting last Monday, found out that there was only one other fogger in all of Lucas County. We had 4. We bought them because we wanted them for the transport vehicles and everything that was happening before. So we have since loaned 2 of them out. We've kept 2 of them. One, City of Toledo is using one, and the other one is on its way out to Monclova. Monclova, White House, Waterville, Maumee, and Springfield they're gonna have one central place at Monclova where if they need to decon, they're gonna go to Monclova and use the machine, so.
Great, Chief.
Well,
Appreciate you going to city council.
I think they need, obviously we need to keep them apprised, but hopefully we don't have anything in the area for a while. I will say that Columbus Fire Station 24 is quarantined right now with 8 guys in it, so I guess it's a matter of when it's gonna get here, so. We're prepared. I've had several conversations with Oliver and with Chief Long, because obviously if something happens fire-wise, there's going to probably be a police officer right there with us. So I really recommend that we do use one of the firehouses, because we can cook and they can shower, there's beds. If we're going to quarantine at the facility, that's probably going to, and we'll just have to move equipment and guys to the other stations and run a little extra out of the other stations if that happens, so.
Good.
And we did talk at the fire chiefs about opening the AVL or the CAD system. What that means is right now, if a call comes in to say Sophos in Monroe and Lasky, that's actually Toledo Fire. But if this hits and Toledo has to brown out some stations, and we're going to open the AVL up, and that'll send the closest vehicle to all incidents. That way the whole community's not waiting for trucks to come from clear across town, so.
Good.
And I'll make sure I've been trying to send Mr. Turner everything I get from the CDC or from the state fire chiefs, anything like that, I've been trying to forward so that we're all on the same page.
The communication's been great. I'm assuming you're getting what I'm getting, John.
I was on the last 2 calls with the county, and, again, I'm just absorbing all we can and figuring out how we go forward. I've talked to Oliver a few times. I've stayed away from the chiefs just because I figure Oliver's got that covered, and you guys are probably answering 1,000 other questions. And
Sure.
I think if you need any of us here on the board, we're always available.
Absolutely, my phone's open too. If you do need to get a hold of me, not a problem, so.
Thanks,
Okay.
Chief.
Yep.
Thanks.
Fire department? Or police department?
Mr. Chair. There is one resolution under the Police Department, a resolution extending the promotional eligibility list for the rank of sergeant. This dates back to the retirement of Sergeant Caldwell, and since that time, in order to not short the police department with its road capacity, they're currently working to fill 2 positions on the road, and if they were to promote, that would create another vacancy. So in order to provide that consistency in staffing, this is being brought forward with a request to extend the eligibility list at this time.
I'll move Resolution 20-066 to extend the promotional eligibility list for the rank of sergeant in the police department.
Second, before I do that, has that been approved by the union?
It's my understanding that Chief Long has been in discussions with the union.
Okay.
Whether it's technically been approved by the union, that I don't know. I could call him or ask.
I'm just curious, in order to avoid any future disagreement, it'd be good to have that up front.
Sure.
Could
Okay?
you check that out and get back to Mr. January?
Certainly,
I
yes.
mean, we're gonna go ahead and approve it tonight, but I just think that the chief should run that by them and make sure that we're all in good shape.
It's a good
Yeah, so,
point.
Yeah.
my understanding is he'll confirm with the union, with the approval. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Genoway?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes. Next is the administrator. Got quite a few items this evening.
Indeed, thank you for your patience tonight. The first item is a scheduled public hearing on Quarry Ridge for a petition for street lighting. This is from the Mitchell Development Company. This is Quarry Ridge Plat 1 for lots 1 through 61 in the development, and they would be the sole petitioner for the lots.
I'll open up the public hearing at 5:12. I don't think there's anybody here for the applicant. Is there anyone here to make a comment on the public hearing for street lighting? If not, I'll close the public hearing at 5:13.
I'm offer resolution 20-038, resolution approving Quarry Ridge Plat 1 street lighting petition.
Second?
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genoway?
Yes.
Next item?
Next item is approval of a resolution authorizing the use of liability insurance in lieu of a surety bond. House Bill 291, adopted by the State of Ohio Legislature, does allow local units of government to cover elected officials with the provisions of their liability insurance policies, the employee dishonesty and faithfulness of execution of office provisions in lieu of a surety bond. It's estimated that there are savings by going this route, and I think it's a little less administratively complex. So at this time, there are 2 resolutions related to this on the agenda. The first would be to authorize at the township level the use of the liability insurance provisions instead of a surety bond on a policy basis. And then as elected officials begin new terms, this could be implemented on a rolling basis, beginning with Mr. Simcoe, whose new term as fiscal officer would be beginning on April 1st.
Is there a limit on the liability? I mean, what was the limit on the surety bond?
Correct. So the limits are the same. Ohio Revised Code, because of the size of the budget for Sylvania Township, is at the highest level of coverage, $250,000 of coverage. The bond in the past was for $250,000, and that would be the amount covered through the Ohio plan.
I'll move resolution 20-061, approval of a resolution to authorize the use of liability insurance in lieu of a surety bond.
Second.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genoway?
Yes.
And I'll also move resolution 2065, which is approval of the performance of duty policy for the fiscal officer.
What is this? I mean, I don't get into Dave's work too much. I assume he does a good job. He's been here a long time and certainly knows his position. But before I sign off on what he does, what am I signing off on here?
So, under the Ohio Revised Code, this is the acceptance of coverage, the proof of coverage. So, Stapleton Insurance sent over the confirmation of that coverage. They actually made it back to March 1 to become effective, and they waived the cost of coverage. So this is a required action simply to accept the proof of coverage.
This is just saying that we're unaware of any malfeasance or things by Dave in the past, and kind of like if they ask you if you have an outstanding claim or something when you get in insurance, I would assume?
Correct. Part of the application process was through Stapleton to confirm if there were any outstanding issues, findings for recoveries, those types of issues.
Okay. I'll offer Resolution 20-065, approval of necessary faithful performance of duty policy of fiscal officer Dave Simcoe.
Second.
I'll call the roll. Mr. Genoway?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes. Next item.
Next item is approval of a resolution concurring with the recommendation from the Insurance Committee to prorate HSA contributions. This is a housekeeping matter. Back in December, when the trustees approved a variety of measures from the Health Insurance Committee, this one wasn't part of the list at the time, and before the end of the first quarter, just working to clarify this point. So this would work, for example, a family coverage level for employees. In the first quarter of each calendar year, they would receive the full amount, and then in the second quarter, they would receive 75%, and then so on, so that you don't have a situation where an employee starting in December would receive the full amount.
I'll approve Resolution 20-063, which is a resolution concurring with the recommendation of the Insurance Committee to prorate the HSA contributions.
Second.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genoway?
Yes.
Resolution 64, approval of a resolution providing for the Northwest Ohio Advanced Energy Improvement District Program Plan and related functions. This is a resolution which was received from Attorney John Burrell, the township's appointment to the ESID committee, and this is an expansion of the existing program, which currently applies for commercial properties for the undertaking of energy improvement projects via special assessments. This would expand those types of improvement projects and eligibility for them to residential properties. According to Attorney Burrell, there's no financial liability to the township for unpaid special assessments.
And there's no project yet, right? This is just improving,
Correct.
expanding the program. I'll move Resolution 20-064, approval of a resolution to provide for the Northwest Ohio Advanced Energy Improvement District Program and related functions.
Second.
Mr. Genoway?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes. Next item.
Resolution 2068 is a resolution of intent to create a joint economic development district and to establish a public hearing. This specific resolution is to create the joint economic development district, which initially would include the Oak Leaf Village complex. This ranges back to the meeting on May 7th, 2019, at which time the trustees approved an enterprise zone abatement for Oak Leaf Limited Partnership, and a condition of that approval was inclusion of the property in a joint economic development district. So the initial term of the proposed contract for the JED would last through December 31st of 2024, very close to 5 years, and then following that initial term, there would be 4 additional 5-year periods, and those additional 5-year periods would extend automatically unless either party takes action 180 days prior to that renewal period. So as part of the agreement, while the contract would be active, there would be an agreement to not annex the properties inside of the JED. There would be an income tax of 1.5%, which would apply, and then 10% of the revenue collected through the JED would be returned to the district. Again, this is specific to the Oakleaf Village property and does not include any other properties at this time. Certainly glad to answer questions.
Well, then after collection, there'd be a 50-50 split?
Correct. So
Township and city?
correct. The city of Sylvania would serve as the tax administrator, and then following the distribution for the improvement of the district of 10%, there's the 2% ratio for the city to serve as the tax administrator. They would be able to retain 1% for refund purposes, and then the balance would be 50-50. The balance of the revenues would be distributed to the township and the city on an equal basis. So what that means for the township on at least the employee component is roughly between $15,000 and $19,000 in revenue per annum.
And city council approved this last evening, is that?
Correct. City
Correct.
council approved this last evening, and they did have one question, which we had the same question after further review of the agreement, was to make a couple of language changes in terms of the city extending its utilities. The initial agreement was worded that they were intending to extend the utilities into the JED district with the Oakleaf Village property, but as a clarification, because that's in the county's utility district, we are working on a minor revision to that.
And that's something you and I talked about anyway, I think, right? So it's a minor revision we would recommend.
And technically, this is a resolution of intent to create, the final documents would be prepared within the next couple of days with those minor modifications. They'd be placed in the office of the fiscal officer and of the city clerk, and then they'd be available for public inspection at least 30 days before the public hearing, which would be established tonight. That public hearing would fall on May 5th, and then after the holding of the public hearing, the trustees, if they so desired, would be in a position to actually approve the contract and the related economic development plan.
This is our first one.
Yep,
Correct. This would be the first one, and the contract would, it does anticipate the future and possibly other properties if they're voluntarily agreed to by the property owner, and then between the parties, if they were to agree, possibly coming into the agreement as well.
I'll move resolution 20-068 with the intent to create a joint economic development district with the city of Sylvania and to establish a public hearing.
Second.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes. Next item?
And the final item on the agenda is Resolution 2070, which is a resolution authorizing the use of non-precedent setting leave time adjustments. There was an updated version distributed by email today and placed on the dais, and with the substantial changes in employment law, which are in the wake of the coronavirus epidemic being pushed from federal levels, state levels, this is intended to provide more administrative flexibility to administer those policies and respond to unexpected circumstances. Certainly my intention would be to keep the board updated on any personnel changes, policy changes as they come forward, and err on the side of providing too much information.
I think- Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to offer the resolution.
Well, that's okay, but I think you're already in discussions on this, but you're going to come back to us with a plan, correct?
So this is, it's worded so that it is more broad in scope. This, for example, one example would be the existing sick leave attendance policy where a doctor's note is required. Technically, if an individual contracts coronavirus, they may be ordered to stay at home without that note, and so making that kind of calibration is what I would have in mind. At the staff level, with having any modified staffing levels, would be more administrative, but this does touch on those staffing level adjustments as well. So with the federal legislation, when it talks about paid sick leave, if the Families First Coronavirus Act, which has passed the U.S. House and is moving through the process, if that's adopted, there would be more considerations for paid sick leave days. I believe the initial draft passed by the House had 2 weeks' worth for FMLA, which would be for the purposes of the pandemic, broadened to include those who are quarantined or who's caring for someone who's been quarantined, or for childcare purposes because of the extensive school closures. Just meeting those types of policy changes as they occur.
Good, I'm sorry.
I'll offer Resolution 20-070, authorizing use of non-precedent-setting leave time adjustments.
Second,
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genoway?
Yes.
thank you.
Good, thank you.
Next item is the fiscal officer, and you have nothing. There's a first.
Lower interest rates for everybody.
And I don't think anyone's set up for any non-agenda items on the, okay. So we'll move on to open discussion and reports. You have anything more to add, Oliver?
Nothing further. Thank you, trustees and fiscal officer.
Anything, John? The one thing I'd like the board to be aware of is that Oliver and I are working on I'd call it an annexation risk policy or something, but when zoning comes in, we'd like to know what kind of risk that is, if it's in the city's water district or sewer district. We don't have that worked out, but I wanted the board to be aware, and Dave, you to be aware, we're working on a policy there. Right now, we think it would apply to requests for rezoning, and maybe look at our road projects, that if they're in areas adjacent to the city, as an example, we haven't decided this yet, but maybe instead of doing a 20-year resurfacing, we might do a micro-surfacing that lasts 7 or 8 years. We certainly want to stay up with the road conditions, but we don't want to be investing too much money if it's subject to annexation. We don't have the program worked out yet, but our intent is to have a low risk, high risk, maybe a medium risk when we start to review things that are in the city's water district. That's our intent. We don't have it worked out yet, but I wanted the board to be aware that we're working on some type of program.
Makes sense.
Adjournment, I'll move to adjourn at 5:28.
Second.
Mr. Genoway?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes, we're adjourned, thank you. Thanks again, Chief, for coming out.